So, Willie, let me ask you first.
So,
Let me hit you with this first question.
you want to get right into the questions?
Did you have another idea?
I don't know. Like, kind of shooting from the hip here, as always.
I think I put myself in the shoes of somebody that doesn't know you very well.
Okay.
Because I feel like a lot of people that listen to the podcast are people that we're familiar with or have some understanding of who we are.
Right.
Just from a recovery standpoint or the community or friends or family or whatever the case is.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of people that maybe don't listen or don't know you, and it's like the bits and pieces of information that you drop here and there, which are always beautiful. Like there's always just beautiful, sweet nuggets of information and insight in everything that you have to say. But it's clear to me that you have a very, I don't want to say untraditional, but a different perspective on God or a higher power.
Right. Okay.
And so I would love to discuss that just a little bit more.
As would I.
Because I think maybe it's important here to talk about the importance of a higher power when it comes to a 12-step program.
Uh-huh.
So one of the things in a 12-step program is that you have a higher power. It doesn't matter what it is. You can call it your own. And so a lot of people will choose to call it God, or they come up with their own concept of God, or whatever that case is. And but you, however, are an atheist.
I am an atheist.
So tell us how that works and what that means.
So I guess atheism it's such a it's weird that atheism is as controversial as it is, because all atheism is a stance on one thing, one particular thing, and it's not a belief system, it's not a structure. It's I don't see sufficient evidence to prove the existence of God. Right, and that's basically what atheism is. It's a stance, and I don't know that I was always an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I tried most of my life to believe in the God that I was given at birth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I share about that. You know, when I was born, I was given a few things that I didn't ask for. One of them was my name, which I've grown to appreciate now. But one of them was my religion, and my parents decided for me what my religion was going to be based on what their religion was, and they with the best of intentions
Right.
instilled in me
Should
their
be
God.
said.
Yeah. So when you take a look at society and you take a look at our country and the traditions of America, the traditions of our state, things like that, the word God generally will almost automatically refer to one particular God. Around here, the word God, you don't really think of Buddha or Mohammed or...
When you say around here, do you mean Utah specifically,
I mean America,
or America?
in general.
Okay.
I mean based on a lot of the polls and things like that. The word God usually is attached to the Judeo-Christian God, you know, the God of Abraham, which is also the God of Islam, and you know, the Abrahamic tradition was where the Jewish tradition came from. But I struggled, you know. My journey with God and the higher power thing began back when I was a child, because I was a super influential child. And now that I have my own kids, I kind of understand brain waves and things like that, the stuff that we know about the way that children learn, perceive the world, and the way that the subconscious works. Well, I couldn't differentiate the difference between truth and reality when I was a kid. I had a great imagination, and I was highly influential. So I could be influenced easily based on the way that you could make me feel, right? And so I was a true believer in Santa Claus. Like, when I was a kid, it wasn't a metaphorical thing. Santa Claus was as real as my parents. And it turned out that I was being lied to, right? And that was devastating for me. Well, when they took me to church and they started teaching me the stories of the Bible, hell was a very real possibility for me because of my inability to control my behavior. I was hyperactive, and I've shared a lot of times about how I created an identity around what other people labeled me as. And so because I couldn't sit still, because I wasn't able to pay attention in school, things like that, I was kind of labeled as a bad kid. And my tendency to react to emotions negatively, like I would throw fits or hit people, things like that. I was labeled as bad, and according to that tradition, bad people went to hell. And so I spent a great deal of my life in a real fear of going to hell, right? And so I think that it played a bigger part on my psyche than people understand. And so it took me a long time. Most of my life, I prayed for my life to be better. And it never worked out while I was praying for that. And so when I look back at the way that I questioned religion, right, because I've read the Bible several times, and that's because I was raised in a Christian household. I wanted to understand who Jesus was and what he did, and I wanted to understand the Old Testament. But the stories just scared the fuck out of me.
Right.
And I couldn't wrap my head around this tyrannical, angry, vicious, jealous house, this dictator in the sky. But I thought that there was something wrong with me because I couldn't behave right and I couldn't believe correctly. And so fast forward to the last time I got sober, right? The last time I got sober, I thought it was do or die time for me. And I thought that I was going to have to come to terms and learn how to believe in that, or I was going to be doomed. And what ended up coming out of it was I started seeking God. And as I followed the scientific method of evidence, I found that for me, the evidence wasn't there, and that was okay.
Can I ask you specifically, when you talk about no evidence of God, you're speaking about the Judeo-Christian version of God,
the God that I was raised
right?
with.
Okay.
Right. And I mean, the resources that I found are philosophers, authors, the big names in the atheist community, like Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, people like that. I started listening to what they were talking about and where they were getting their information, and it resonated with me. And I struggled a lot with it because the fear was that I was raised with, that if I questioned God, that meant that the devil has me, right? If I doubt, that means that the devil has me. And I didn't, as I try to believe in that God, I have to believe in that devil. I have to believe in that Lucifer, Satan figure as a real thing. As you and I sit here today, it wasn't metaphorical for me, right? I had to believe that there was a spirit that had a hold of my spirit that made me do things I didn't want to do, like get high or steal stuff. Or
The
be
devil,
tempted. Right. The devil.
We kind of talked about
the devil
that,
made
right?
me do
The
it.
devil made you do it.
And so I went to a meeting.
An AA meeting.
I went to an AA meeting, and there was a guy there, and I loved the way this guy talked, right? And I had already been through the steps. I had already been on 24-hour fast and vow of silence the first time I wrote A Vision for Me. I had done this intense spiritual work, but I wasn't growing, and I wasn't happy. I was still living in a lot of fear. And the God that I was trying to come around to wasn't working for me. And this guy was sharing, and it was such a pivotal moment. It was such a moving thing for me, you know. And he was talking about his family, and he was talking about how they were always putting pressure on him about doing the right thing in the church and the Christian church and stuff like that. And he got to a point where he told his family, he said, you know what? I love you guys, but I'm not a Christian. And you can either accept that or not accept it, but I'm not playing your game anymore. And it was like, what?
You can do that?
You can do that?
Yeah.
I didn't know you could. I thought that I had to come around to it. Right?